All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to the Saskatchewan Wildlife Federation Youth Conservation Leadership Speaker Series. I am Shannon Anderson, the Education Director here at SWF, and today I am joined by Tom Perry with the Ministry of Environment. Thank you so much for coming on, Tom.
Yeah, no problem, Shannon. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. So I guess we'll just jump right in. So introduce yourself. Tell me who you are. What do you do?
Yeah, my name is Tom Perry, and I'm a wildlife biologist for the Saskatchewan Ministry of Environment Wildlife Unit.
Awesome. So I feel like wildlife biologist is pretty a broad category. So what kind of activities do you do? What are some of the things that you're most commonly out doing?
Yeah, so as a wildlife biologist, I have a wide range of roles and responsibilities. But the main part of my work is to research and manage wildlife populations right across Saskatchewan. So my office takes me many places throughout the province. I can spend my time conducting wildlife surveys and research to understand population numbers, sometimes from a plane or helicopter,
Oh,
sometimes
cool.
sometimes on the ground in trucks, or sometimes, more often than I care to admit, right from my computer right here. And I would say too that being a wildlife biologist also means that I spend a lot of time doing data analysis, report writing, and a big part of the job also involves working with and communicating with the public about wildlife.
Right. I can only imagine. It sounds really exciting to be flying around in a helicopter, but that's not the whole job. Hey, you wish.
I wish.
Yeah. So, Tom, was there anything specifically when you were growing up or anything that, kind of inspired you to become a wildlife biologist? Is this something you always wanted to do, or did you kind of come across it by accident?
No, I grew up in rural Saskatchewan, spending most of my time exploring the outdoors, whether it was hunting or fishing or camping or hiking or just simply watching animals. Uh, so really this interest in wildlife and just being outdoors made me interested in pursuing a career in wildlife biology and doing that sort of thing as a full-time job.
That's really cool. So basically, you took your, you know, uh, off the clock time and turned it into a job, which is really neat. So, what kind of steps do you have to take to become a wildlife biologist? You don't just sign up for it. So, what kind of things did you do to get here?
Yeah, and so I guess I'll say it just depends in what type of wildlife biology a person wants to do. If it's more research focused or management focused, there's some different streams that people can do. But a common step and what I went through was after high school, I enrolled at the University of Saskatchewan to work on a Bachelor's of Science degree in biology. Uh, Towards the end of my undergraduate degree, I realized I wanted to continue learning about wildlife, so I decided to bug the wildlife population ecology professor about getting involved in some of his cool research projects that he was always showing off in class. And the professor just so happened to have a research project in Newfoundland starting up on studying moose.
Cool.
That needed a student. And so before long, before I knew it, I was off to Newfoundland to study moose as part of a Master's of Science degree. Once I completed my master's, that put me in a good position to be competitive for work here in Saskatchewan with the Ministry of Environment.
That's really cool, though, that you get to explore the country too. Newfoundland's quite a ways away. I miss it a lot. So, okay, we kind of touched on this a little earlier, but you said that your job takes you all over the place. You do all kinds of things. I'm sure there's a huge difference between your in-field season stuff versus your winter stuff. What are the things you're working on here in the wintertime when it's really cold?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that there is no off season for a wildlife biologist, contrary to popular belief, except at least in my role. But definitely the very busiest time of the year is actually right now.
Really?
Yeah, which typically stretches from October to the end of March. And this is when we conduct the majority of our aerial and ground-based wildlife surveys, and then takes us into our annual season setting meetings where we evaluate all our data that we've collected throughout the year, and we use our information to set management strategies, hunting seasons, hunting quotas, and regulations for the next year. So This is definitely a busy time of year. I would say
I would
though
have
that,
never guessed.
yeah, the rest of the year involves a lot of data analysis, report writing,
Mhm.
with July pronghorn surveys kind of being the highlight of our summer field work.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, great. So does that like do those surveys happen all over the South? Like where are you? You get to
Yeah.
travel a lot by the sounds of it.
Yeah. So our wildlife surveys are all over the province, for different species. There's different focus and different survey techniques that we use. So for our pronghorn surveys, obviously being in kind of core pronghorn range in Southwest Saskatchewan,
Yeah.
and we primarily use a ground-based survey there, and it works well in July to count pronghorn, because they've just had their young for the year, and the young are big enough that they're out and moving, so you can see them more, and crops aren't
Right.
so high, so you can still see them out in the landscape and get a good count on them.
Oh, cool. So it's like the perfect medium. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't really have intentions right today, but if I decided tomorrow that I wanted to be a wildlife biologist, what kind of skills would you recommend that I work on?
I would just encourage anyone interested in becoming a wildlife biologist to take every opportunity to volunteer and or work for wildlife and conservation organizations. It's a really good way to start to get an understanding and experience about some of the work that we do, and get your foot in the door a lot of times. And so those things exist throughout the province, like through the Wildlife Federation, whether it's volunteer or summer work. I
Mhm.
worked at the provincial fish hatchery when I was younger, and
No way. That's cool.
yeah, and that was a big start for me. Yeah, so that's one thing. As a biologist, you are a scientist. So doing well at school, getting good grades are important, with really the focus on understanding science. So folks should plan on attending some type of post-secondary education with a focus on wildlife biology. Uh, Another thing is working with people is an important part of the job. So working
Mhm.
on your people and communication skills is extremely important as well.
Yeah, well,
Um,
you never know when you might get a surprise interview right now.
exactly. And hopefully I'm nailing it.
Yeah, oh
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
and the last thing I was going to say was that finally, I just encourage folks that are interested in this sort of line of work is just to get outside into the country and start asking questions about wildlife that interests you. We're lucky to live in a province where we have an abundance and diversity of wildlife. So
No kidding.
many people in Saskatchewan know tons about wildlife. So take every opportunity to ask questions of those people, and start exploring the province. That's the best way to really learn and start understanding things.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. Never stop asking questions. I feel like that's a pretty good one. Okay, this is kind of a fun question, but you sound like you have hit the jackpot on a pretty sweet job. But if you weren't a wildlife biologist, is there anything else you think you'd do?
Quarterback of the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I mean,
There you
what else?
go.
Uh, no, I think being a buffalo rancher would be a cool job. Buffalo are such cool animals,
They
and I
are
get to
pretty
work
cool.
outside a lot. So
That's awesome. That's the first time I've heard that. Nobody else has said that yet. So there you go. Um, so you kind of mentioned, being involved with the Wildlife Federation is a good thing, and of course we're going to promote that. But are there any other organizations that you would recommend volunteering with, helping out with, if you want to get your foot in the door in wildlife biology, or that kind of thing?
yeah, again, I'll just reiterate that the Wildlife Federation is a great organization to get involved with for learning about wildlife and conservation. And I know you folks offer a lot of programs for young people. That's a great gateway to get you into the world of wildlife and starting to understand really, where the province is at with wildlife and wildlife management, wildlife biology, those sorts of things. There are other organizations, in Saskatchewan and throughout Canada, that offer similar things, like the Saskatchewan chapter of the Wildlife Society, where for folks that are a little bit more advanced in their technical training to become a wildlife biologist. That
Oh,
organization,
okay,
yeah,
cool.
it's a good spot to just network with professionals, and for a little bit more in-depth science type connections to that world. Um, so, those organizations that exist, I would, recommend any organization that offers opportunity to just help out with wildlife focused projects, habitat projects, conservation projects are going to be a good thing in your training to become a wildlife biologist.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll say here is that at the wildlife unit here, we offer some cooperative research initiatives like the Cooperative Wildlife Management Survey that anyone can download on their phone to assist in wildlife management and get a taste of some wildlife biology activity and contribute to management here in the province.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like citizen science, that's a really great way to kind of like get yourself in there and also like learn more about the job, but like, you know, get those technical skills that you're going to need later. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, before we wrap up, I have this question I ask everybody. If you were going to give advice to somebody in high school or maybe first or second year university, to somebody who's trying to figure out what they want to do, what kind of advice would you give them? What is the thing that you now are looking back and like, man, I really wish I had known that when I was leaving high school?
So I would think that look into whether it's university or college programs that offer wildlife biology focused programs. So whether it's an undergraduate degree in biology or environmental biology or wildlife management, start looking now because there opportunities exist both in Saskatchewan, throughout Canada, and even into the States. So there are those places. And decide what if this is something that you're really interested in doing. And I would just suggest that anybody that's really interested in doing it, go in full force, go in dedicated with passion and plan to work hard. University is not easy. College is not easy. And so you're going to have to work really hard. You're going to have to work on grades, like I say, and making sure, but that's not the only piece. The last thing I'll say is that start to bug the professors or your instructors or teachers. And a lot of times I think folks are really shy to make that connection. But for me, that was a big start, was to just go up and start talking to one of the professors, and it really snowballed into where I am here today.
No
and
kidding.
Just trying to make that. So if you take the initiative, you can make it happen, and just work hard at it.
Awesome. Well, it really sounds like too, if it is something that you're really passionate about, all those obstacles are going to be a little easier. So
for sure. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, well, thank you so much, Tom, for coming and joining us today. For those of you who are watching, we're going to be interviewing a new conservation professional next week. So keep watching our Facebook page and check out our YouTube channel. Thanks.
Thank you.